I happen to know the speaker pretty well, coincidentally, uh, and asked her how she wanted to be introduced or whatever, and so she has a her speaker bio, which I kind of condensed just a little bit, but I'll read. It really shows her wit within the writing. Let me read this to you. Kerrin McMahan comes from McCall, Idaho, a remote mountain town, originally a sawmill town, but now a tourist destination. She grew up in a house on the shore of a lake and thought that was normal. She attended the University of Idaho in Moscow, Idaho, not Russia, and graduated with a BS in journalism, then went to Ohio State to get her MA in journalism. After that, she moved back to Idaho as an editor for the Daily Idahonian and later the Lewiston, Idaho Morning Tribune. Going back to school part time, after 4 years, she got her MA in philosophy. So at age 30, she enrolled in the PhD program at UC Riverside and drove down to Southern California with her 3 cats. Consequently, she hasn't shoveled snow since 1990. Although specializing in virtue ethics, Kerrin had the good fortune to study under John Martin Fisher, best known in academia for his book, The Metaphysics of Death. Fisher was known among the grad students as Dr. Death and sparked her interest in the topic. Kerrin spent 6 years at UCR and left ABD, which stands for All But Dissertation. She'd be a PhD if she'd finished that. She wrote about half her dissertation titled An Etiology of Virtue before becoming discouraged after realizing she no longer believed in free will. She taught part-time at many area colleges in LA until landing a full-time faculty job at East Los Angeles College in 1998. She retired as Dean of Instructional Services in 2023. She continues to teach philosophy part-time when she can. She also worked part-time at Disneyland over a 20-year period until leaving for good soon after COVID. She is in a non-traditional family with Bill and Allison Hoverston Davis, and they share a home in Montebello with their 3 dogs, 2 cats, 2 parakeets, and a turtle. So without further ado, I introduce to you Kerrin McMahan.
Here, let me unmute. Okay. Um, eh, I'm going to talk to you about the philosophy of death. And when I was thinking about how to pitch this, I realized this is a very well-educated group, but as far as I know, no one else is a philosopher. Um, the thing I, so I guess the thing I want to get across is we're all standing in relationship to death, sometimes closer, sometimes farther away, depending on our stage of life and our circumstances. So when I'm talking about philosophy of death, I'm trying not to make it personal. Uh, Death is a reality for all of us, but I'm to step back a little bit and do the philosophical look at it, which means thinking about how to think about it, if that makes any sense. So Tim has very kindly agreed to manage the slideshow for me. So ready when you are, Tim. I should say also, if you want to interrupt anytime or ask a question or make a comment, I'm totally cool with that. I think that makes it better. Okay, philosophy of death. And by the way, I asked AI to help me put this slide presentation together, and I didn't really like the way it handled the text, but it came up with the greatest illustrations, so I kept all the AI illustrations. Nature, value, and ethical significance of mortality. These are these are 3 interrelated problems. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. Yeah. First, the philosophical problem of death, then the metaphysics of death, and then perspectives on survival and the afterlife. Um, In terms of a philosophical problem, we need to distinguish that from the biological problem, uh, because whether someone is dead or not, in the end, is pronounced by a medical professional who has specific criteria. Philosophy is not necessarily constrained that way, um, but the philosophical problem of death uh, explores whether death is an end or a transition. And we all, along the way, we focus on what it means to be mortal, uh, what it is to be a self, and whether it's rational or irrational to fear death. Uh, and we also ask, how does the fact that death is inevitable affect the value, meaning, and ethical structure of our lives? Next slide, please. If I start going too fast, or you want to bring something up, feel free to interject. Okay, next slide. Sorry, introducing the philosophical problem of death. Okay, when we go to define death, biologically, it means what it means, right? Uh, philosophically, uh, it philosophically, when we say what does death mean, we mean what does it mean to those of us who are aware that we're going to die. Uh, how it affects the way we live, and how it affects the way we think about how we live. Uh, we could we we could talk about death in a very abstract sense and say it's the problem of non-being. Non-being is something that you might have trouble conceiving of. I know I can't. It's hard to conceive of your own death if it requires imagining that you're no longer conscious, because consciousness is a concept that you can't have if you're not conscious, right? I mean, that's kind of a theoretical problem. Maybe of more interest to most people is whether death is harmful. Uh, Now, you've all heard of Epicurus and the Epicureans, uh, in ancient Greece. Epicurus said this about death: where death is, we are not, and where we are, death is not. Therefore, death is nothing to us. Uh, Conversely, if you think that death is a harm, then you would probably feel like it's what makes it harmful is it's depriving you of future life experiences. You know, what's funny is no one, at least most people, no one I know regrets the time before they existed, but we think with regret of the time when we will no longer exist. Uh, then there's a whole nother place we could go, which I decided to cut out because it's too much stuff. But if you're interested in existentialism, uh, an existentialist talked about a thing called being towards death, which means in order to live authentically and understand our purpose, we have to be aware that we are going to die, because it's what encourages us to try to find meaning while we're alive. And then you could go into this, of course, takes in religion, philosophy debates whether consciousness is tied to the physical brain, in which case it would end at death, or whether there's a soul that exists that persists afterward. And in some cases, uh, uh, people who are into reincarnation, Eastern philosophy, think about the self persisted before and after. So I guess those are the main questions. There's one other question, which is more of a psychology question, which is if fear of death is irrational, um, then then the fear of death uh, The fear of death encourages us to follow religion and what's the word I want? And practice self-esteem to build ourselves up, to think of ourselves as something beyond a temporary person. But that's psychology. A lot of people can't distinguish between psychology and philosophy. My parents had that very problem. I don't think they ever quite understood what I did. But anyway, the problem is it's not about the biological process. It's about understanding what it means to be a finite being, but facing an indefinite future. Excuse me while I lift my doggy down. Okay, can I have the next slide, please? Okay, we have this notion, and I was talking to my dentist about this actually. It's funny. I was telling him I'm going to talk about philosophy of death. And I said, one thing that's really important is that we're the only ones who know we're going to die. And he disagreed. He said he thinks dogs and other animals know if they're going to die. And I'm like, well, I can't really address that. But I do know that we know we're going to die. It's the realization that death is inevitable. And that drives human behavior. It drives our culture. It drives what we make meaning out of. But one hopes that this being aware that we're going to die helps us or fosters a deeper, more appreciative approach to life. Because really, if we all just lived forever, why would you feel like getting out of bed? That's one way of looking at it. But what's the point? I can do this again in a million years. If you're aware of mortality, which we all are at this point in our lives, it's a teacher. The awareness of mortality is like a teacher for us because it motivates us to prioritize things, meaningful goals, strengthen your relationships, and even try to take care of your health because we all know how vulnerable we are there. And that as we get older, which one thing I really like about this group is I'm not the oldest one here, which is cool because I'm only 66. But as we get older, our awareness of death increases, and with age and experience. And then when we hit middle age and we lose our parents, and then we start losing our peers, and then we face our own death. Okay, so far so good. Next slide. Okay. What is the value of death? Well, does it diminish or enrich the meaning of life? I'm not here to advocate a viewpoint, but just FYI, I think death enriches the meaning of life quite a bit. Because again, if we're not thinking about that our life has a limit, then we're not necessarily thinking about how to best live our lives. Ethical implications. It helps us. The fact that we're going to die and we know everyone else is going to die influences certainly our moral framework. And as is why we have this great taboo about killing. Why would we have that if death meant nothing? Epicurus. But death is the framework for everything we do, even if we're not thinking about it at the time. Oh, let's see. We appreciate what is finite and rare, so maybe our knowledge that our lives are finite helps us. Yes, I think certainly that's the case. What about the impact of death? Again, when I say the impact of death, I mean the impact of awareness of death, because it's something we can't avoid. And we all are, the impact of my death, uh, uh, well, is really not my concern because then I'll be gone. But the impact of the existence of death, that's something. Uh, Sorry, I'm sort of riffing as I go along. I was in grad school, I was taught not to read a paper. If you're going to give a paper, don't read it. Just talk about it. But there, I'm out of practice. Um,
Did you
let's go
want
on to the next.
questions now, Kerrin, or do you want to wait?
Absolutely. I'll be
Okay,
happy
so
to take a question.
I'm wondering, why is our discussion about death so much more prevalent now? There are even death doulas. There's courses to teach people how to help people go through the death process. That it was like cancer at one point was a word we whispered. We would say the C word, and now we speak about it openly. And I feel that people are speaking about death more openly than ever. Do you know why that is? Or do you
Well, I think
have?
that's a cultural cycle. Certainly, past civilizations have had different attitudes toward death. The Egyptians of the ancient times lived toward death, and death was like very central to their lives. Other cultures and civilizations, not so much. Um, I think, yeah, there is more awareness of death, and I think this is just my opinion because I'm not an expert on this, but I think it's a symptom of the maturity of civilization. Uh, it's one thing to just go, I picture uh, a primitive, you know, a primitive person going, you know, death, and then as we grow in our relationships and our understanding of the world, we think about death as something, especially those of us who are senior citizens. Death is a part of our lives every day. Uh, and so, yeah, we, Ruth, it might be a function of our age that we hear about death all the time too. But I don't think of
No, I
a
mean,
5-year-old doesn't.
even on the internet, the number of people just sharing their what do they call those death after death experiences
Near-death experiences. And
grown enormously. You can find so much material about it. Before, again, people didn't talk about it, they were afraid to. And I just wonder, I know a lot of spiritual teachers say that this is a time of great awakening, more so than ever before. And I wonder whether the awakening has to do with understanding death better. I don't know. Have you thought about that from that aspect?
um, well, I think awakening to me, awakening is something that happens on a personal level. But if enough people around you are willing to talk about it, then it becomes part of your life too. That's the best I can probably come up with. There have been periods that have been called awakenings, over human history. And gosh, I really hope we're in one now because uh, there's some changes I'd like to see. But I don't know. Robin's hand is up.
Yeah, I have a pondering as you're speaking that I'm wrestling with, and that's this idea that, well, if we weren't aware of death, we wouldn't get up in the morning, we wouldn't be as motivated. I'm wrestling with that because I'm in this cycle of getting to hang out with people under 5 years old and my grandchildren. They have no awareness of death. In fact, it's like suicide patrol just to babysit. They're just constantly enjoying. It seems like our natural state without awareness of death is to be fully in life. And so I'm not sure that I really buy into, well, if I wasn't aware of death, I wouldn't, be as motivated to get up in the morning. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Also the Tao, that we just looked, it's about just moving in life and flowing and not having to be, challenged or afraid of whatever's coming other than in this moment. So I don't know, just your thoughts on that would be interesting.
Well, one question that we as adults might ask ourselves is, would we like to live in that innocent lack of awareness of death that you see in a 5-year-old? Is that the way we would like to be now? Because certainly that feels innocent and happy, but what would you sacrifice? You could be a perpetual child. And whether or not you have a positive remembrance of childhood, it might make a difference. But is that who you want to be? Is that the kind of existence that you want? And I guess I'd say that an adult human being wants cognitively more than that. Mary Grace?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I thought your hand was up.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
Sam,
is.
sorry.
Sam. I like what you said, Robin, about play. And I've pondered death a lot in my life. My parents died when I was in my early 30s. They were much older when they married. And then when my first wife and I separated, I pondered my own death a lot. And I think all that is important to do. But my final scene is, okay, I know it's out there, but I'm going to play today before I die. That's kind of where I end up with the play idea. And so I think it has helped me thinking about the future, my death, helped me live more fully. And you hear so many people saying, well, you don't know how long you're going to live fully today. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. And I, at the end, want to be playing fully and gleefully because I have no control over what's going to happen, and why worry about it,
Absolutely
But
no control.
I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, absolutely no control. That's very hard for us to accept, but that's a fact.
Yeah, it is.
I can't keep track of everyone's hand who's up. Can someone help me? I'm
Yeah.
seeing
Rachel, who's next?
Okay.
Hi, this is really interesting. There's a practice called memento mori. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's like remember you will die is what that
Remember you will die.
Yeah, and it's like you check off a calendar, like there's 4,000 weeks. I guess it's like an 80-year, and every day or every week you're checking. It's like you're counting backwards the time. It's like the whole idea is remember you're going to die every morning, and even carry around something in your pocket to remind you of that, just so that you're more living in the moment. And something about that just feels so, I don't know, something about it doesn't land well with me to like remind myself that I'm going to die. I mean, maybe you have to hold it in a certain way that it adds to your life instead of like that you're like manifesting your death or something. I don't know. So just was curious.
Traditionally, like if Caesar was going through the streets of Rome in a chariot, traditionally there'd be some dude standing next to him going, "Memento mori, memento mori," and the idea that remembering death serves as a tool to help us promote humility or to discourage us from having an overinflated view of our own importance. But on the other hand, yeah, I don't. If you're thinking all the time, I'm gonna die. That feels like being a very timid person. I guess it depends on how the awareness of your impending death affects how you approach life.
Right.
If it makes you withdraw and shrink, that doesn't seem good. But if it makes you go, okay, this is what I've got, let's go. Right.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying these questions. This is great. Who's
Yeah, next is Paul and Bonnie Walker.
It's fall this time. I don't know if it's relevant, but my father, who's an engineer, not a spiritual being, really, told me that he chose the life that he has from death. He looked down and chose the life that he has. So it was fascinating to hear him talk about that. And it wasn't something that he would normally talk about, but I don't know what brought it up, but he brought it up. So it was just
Well,
interesting.
that's a very Platonic idea. Plato told of the myth of and he talked about where uh, in between life cycles, everyone is just hanging out up in heaven or wherever it is, picking out what they want to be next.
Yeah.
But that in Plato's telling, it was throwing lots. It was a little bit of a gamble. You would basically throw the dice and get several choices, but you didn't have the whole infinite array of choices in front of you. You had to choose from the choices that were offered to you.
There's a great book about that called Destiny of Souls. If the first one is Journey of Souls and the second one is Destiny of Souls, where it goes into great detail of someone who hypnotized hundreds or thousands of people and asked them to talk about what they discovered when they died and came back.
Do you know the author?
Hyacinth is next.
The author is I'll tell it to you before I can put it in the chat later. Next is Hyacinth.
Sure.
Hyacinth. Hyacinth?
Hyacinth?
Do we lose her?
Guess she's gone.
Mm.
Christine.
This is such an interesting conversation. I grew up and still have a very strong Buddhist influence in my life. So it's interesting the way I think we're sort of fed by the way we think, how the cultures we're in look at death. And one thing I put in the chat was, more of us are closer to, in our 60s, we're closer, and 70s and 80s, we're closer to that potential, at least the chronological idea of death. But I do cards, and the other day, and I have in the past pulled the death card. But for me, I think of it as renewal, because if you think about, I look at parallels. If you look at the water cycle, you see, and I guess this is part of the Buddhist, you can translate it to spirituality, but water doesn't ever leave the system. It comes from the earth, and then it goes up in vapor, and then comes down, and it cycles. So I'm wondering how you factor in different cultures' views of death.
There's a real contrast between Eastern and Western views of death. Certainly, that is traditionally in Eastern philosophy, reincarnation is pretty much a constant. And I mean but it was also not merely in Eastern philosophy, but also in Western, and to some extent we've kind of lost track of it. But in ancient Greek philosophy, the word was metempsychosis, which means transmigration of the soul. And it's a purifying process traditionally that releases you from material existence. So and you could speak to this because I don't know that much about Buddhism, but I understand that the idea is to stop being reborn. Is that correct?
Well, you reach a place of enlightenment. And that's the pinnacle. And I guess, because you don't really, it's an aspiration. I don't think it's necessarily it's not like you win the end of the game. And I think it's always beyond, except for the people, yeah. So I think it's an aspirational kind of
I guess
goal.
so. Like Nirvana is an aspiration, not necessarily a reality.
Well, I think it is a reality that people aspire to,
Yeah. Well, sure.
Yeah. Sort of. I don't know. I guess in a way, in Christianity, or East Western religion, that, going to heaven. I think it's a similar kind of parallel.
Actually, because when reincarnation can be seen as a mechanism for cosmic justice, like you might be suffering now for something you did in your past life, but that's also translates pretty easily to monotheistic view that says in the afterlife you will be punished or rewarded. Although it's kind of more optimistic to think that as you go through the circle of lives, you could get better and better, as opposed to kind of being stuck once for how you lived this one life.
Hyacinth is back.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
back.
I also wanted to mention we have Hyacinth and Carolyn. We still have more slides to go through, so maybe we could do those two quickly and then go through more slides and then open it up again at the end for questions.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, I'll go now. Hi all. I am a grateful, lifelong Christian Scientist, and I was raised to not believe in sin, sickness, or death. And it's made for a very interesting human experience. My mother is 86 years old and gets along better than I do. And it's because there's an agelessness that we embrace, and the fact that we understand that life is spiritual, man is spiritual. So there's really no beginning and no end. And like I work the night shift at work, and most people call that the graveyard shift, but we don't call it the graveyard shift because we don't believe it. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's just I'm so grateful for Mastery Circle and these kinds of conversations. And my daughter Jasmine is on too. I don't know if she spoke on this yet because I'm dealing with my granddaughter right now, and I didn't get to. I don't know, but because she was raised this way too. But yeah, it's just um it's like we call it passed on, and I mean I take care of people and I've seen them take their last breath. I mean, we're aware, but it's just like transition, it's like nothing ended, because this material thing is, we see almost that as the beginning, when you end this, that's true life. It's been really profound being this lifelong Christian Scientist that I am, and just as lovely. So, what's your name? I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. The speaker.
Kerrin.
Hi, Kerrin. Thank you so much for bringing this topic to our group. Appreciate you.
My pleasure.
Okay.
Is Carolyn? Carolyn, you seem to be talking, but not making any sound.
Carolyn, we can't hear you.
Can you unmute, Carol?
She's not muted, so it's some other issue. I would suggest we go on with the slides and then go back to Carolyn as the first person after we finish the slides. Is that okay?
Works for me.
Okay, let me go go up to here. Okay, I want to share. There we go. Share keynote. Share. Okay, I'm gonna go up here and we'll go full screen. Okay.
All right. Can we go on to the next
There
one?
we go.
Yeah, I did that one. Let's go on to the next one.
All righty. Oops. Sorry.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay. There we go. Metaphysics of death. Metaphysics in philosophy means the study of the nature of reality, just for a quick definition. So what does it mean to be dead? Well, as we know, it means something different from a doctor's point of view than from a religious person's point of view, from each individual point of view, because it's now, if you watch enough medical shows, or this is our lived reality, we know the difference now between brain death and your heart stopping, So those are all scientific ideas that we look for some sort of objective criteria. But the personal identity criteria of death is really philosophical one. It asks what makes the self stop, and if you believe in reincarnation, in a sense, you don't think the self stops, but there's still a clear transition between forms of life. So it's not the death of the human organism is one thing, but I think what matters most to to us is consciousness, memory, personality, and we say at some point a person is dead when their biography is over. Oh, hello, Katie. Person is dead when their biography is over, which may be prior to their body stopping its function. So there are not lots. There are several ways to look at this. One of them is the idea that you survive as a person, as a self, as long as your consciousness and your memories and your personality persist. So death is what happens when that continuity is over. If, for example, you, like on many a soap opera I used to watch, you had total amnesia after an accident and you had no idea who you used to be, and right, would that be, in a very important sense, the old you is gone, now there's a new you, right? So if you have no way of connecting with that past you. So, I have 10. Oh, okay, I'll try to speed it up. The person distinguishing from the body, that's, let me back up. Okay. The personal identity criterion of death. When your biography is over, you're over. That's crucial in bioethics, which is something I used to teach a lot. If you're talking about bioethics, what's the moral status of a patient who is in vegetative state? What is the moral status of if you want to donate your organs? When would it be appropriate to remove your organs? Right? These are actually practical questions. If you think the body is not the whole story, in other words, it's hard to come at this, but we're talking about separating the continuation of mental life from mere biological functioning, because we could all be on a ventilator and maybe will be one day, and mentally completely unaware and unable to ever become aware. At that point, this doctor is still not going to declare you dead, but is that you, right? The personal identity criterion of the self says, no, that's not you anymore. Now if you believe, on the other hand, that the self is annihilated at death, that means you're gone. You're not going to come back as someone connected to yourself. You're just gone. That interestingly, there are a few religious traditions that hold that. I think Jehovah's Witnesses and I'll give another one, that think that immortality is a reward for a good life, that everyone else just goes away. Right? That's just the idea that self is annihilation, that self becomes annihilated. But where should I go? Let's go on to the next slide. Try to focus me here. Slide. Let's go back to reincarnation. The idea that the soul transmigrates. I talked about the myth of souls choose their new lives. Uh, the goal, if you're going to reincarnation, you're going to Eastern tradition and even Platonic tradition, the goal is to break the cycle of return. And this is something the ancient Greeks and the Eastern civilizations shared, perhaps because of contact between the civilizations. But the goal is to break the cycle of rebirth, so you don't have to keep coming back. The soul undergoes reincarnation to learn, to grow, to purify. You can come back as an animal or a human, or I guess theoretically a bacterium or something alive. I don't know if you could come back as a rock. A lot of you here know that better than I do. But the ancient Greek tradition and the Eastern tradition have a lot in common in terms of the idea that the soul will transmigrate. It gives you a chance to forget the past. If you're Plato, if you're going to go into the river of Lethe, which is what happens in Hades, you forget your past life so you can come back as someone else. I'm starting to ramble. Looking for Tim. Do we have the slides? Questions? All questions. Oh, there it is.
There's a few more slides here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is where I was trying to go in my mind. The Platonic and Socratic views. Ancient Greek philosophy is basically where I lived, but there are a lot of parallels with Eastern philosophy. If the soul separates from the body, that means the soul is above and beyond the body, which means that we have a dualistic nature. It means that mind and body are different things, and the soul is immortal and it will have an eternal journey. If you are more of what we call a physicalist or a materialist, you believe that all that exists is matter. And that your consciousness somehow arises from your material being, but it will end when your material being ends.
Okay, we have about 5 more minutes, Kerrin.
Okay, any questions? Yeah, I don't need to go through the whole thing.
One. I think that's your last slide.
Oh, is it? Okay, good. Oh, a dualism versus physicalism, yeah, or
cyclical nature, reincarnation. Right. You were talking about that. Good.
Oh, yeah. Right. So it all goes in a cycle. All right. I'm looking at the slide now. Philosophical arguments for and against personal survival after death. Let's finish up with that because this is what matters to us as individuals. Do we have personal survival after death? Do we want that? Is it desirable? What are the ethical considerations? Can you harm someone after they're dead? Aristotle famously said, call no man happy till he is dead, because things could go wrong to affect you in your life. But what about after you're dead? Can you harm someone who's already dead? Patricia has her hand up, I think.
Okay. All right. We'll go back here. There we go.
That's my slides.
There we go. And also, Carolyn was trying to speak before. Carolyn, you're muted.
Is it Carolyn?
Can't hear her.
Yeah, we still can't hear you, sweetie.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Kerrin, when you spoke about the primitives thinking, oh, death, I beg to differ, because in the early Catholic Church, they saw people who were not Catholics as pagans. And that comes from the Italian word pagano, which means you live in the fields. So it's a very rural time. And the point is that they just saw the cycle of life over and over and over. So death wasn't something to be feared. It was a natural part. Okay, hold.
Thank you. I didn't know that about the origin of the word pagan. Thank you, Carol. Who's next?
Tricia.
Can you hear me?
Oh, Patricia.
Can you hear
I
me?
can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, we can, Patricia.
Well, scientists now are pondering about what is death, because when confronted with near-death experiences, they realize that consciousness still...
Patricia, you're very light. Could you lean in and speak a little bit louder, please?
Scientists now are pondering what is death when confronted with near-death experiences, because they realize that consciousness still is around. So, you have something to say about that? Because that's a big issue now, about how consciousness is still on, even though the body is dead.
Right. Well, I guess, I mean, the question is, how is that possible? How does consciousness continue without a body? And that presupposes a view of the nature of reality that has a non-physical reality coexisting with a physical reality, which is the certainly traditional Christian point of view. Whether that's true or not, I don't know what to say. Certainly, if you lacked consciousness and had no hope of regaining it, would you want to live that way? Would you consider yourself alive?
Kerrin, we're out of time, so maybe.
Oh, okay. Apparently, I'm out of time. Yeah. Who's next?
I think I'm next.
Ruth?
A lot of religions go to great effort to try to explain to people what this is. And since I worked in the interfaith community, I was able to hear a lot of the different beliefs from different faiths. The Sikhs believe that you have a specific number of breaths allotted to you in your lifetime. And so that's why they encourage you to take long, slow breaths so that you live longer. And in Judaism, the mystical side of Judaism talks about reincarnation, and as does Sufism. But in the traditional religions that don't introduce mysticism as a regular part of the religion, many people are not introduced to the idea of recycled lives. But Judaism does believe that when someone dies, you can elevate their spirit, that when you do a good deed, you say, I'm doing this good deed in honor of, and you name the person who has passed, and that helps elevate their soul. So you ask the question, can we do anything for people who have already died? So here's one religious interpretation of what you can do.
Yeah. It's like, and of course, as a recovering Catholic myself, I remember learning to pray for the dead. Or there's a whole branch of my family that's LDS, which therefore makes me confident that I've been baptized by proxy, so I'm cool, so.
Thank you for bringing up this topic, Kerrin. I think it's something that we...
Thank you for listening. I feel like I would have had more, I'm trying to recover my classroom persona, and I guess she has retired. I enjoyed doing this.
Thank you so much, Kerrin. Appreciate your.
Thank you, Kerrin.
Thank you.
Great topic.
Yay.
Great topic.